Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we're talking about 6 reasons that wives lose respect for their husbands. Respect is a huge thing for a man. It really is. It's one of his core needs. Without having respect, he often can feel a bit lost. He can struggle in the marriage because respect is one of those things that really tells a man that he's enough. It feeds that sense of strength inside of him. And when he doesn't have that respect, he can often interpret that as if he's failing, or as if, like there's something intrinsically wrong with him. He can go into shame. He can go into all these other places because respect is this built-in need that God put inside of a man's heart. But know this, if you're a wife and you're struggling to respect your husband in your marriage, that doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're a bad wife or anything like that. We're going to talk about this dynamic and why this happens in a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, it usually goes back to the fact that you've been hurting as a wife for a long time. And this is something that I have struggled with, and then Adam has had to deal with the lack of respect. And we'll talk about why that was. I remember running across this book called Love and Respect, and I think the author's like Dr. Emerson Eggerick or something like that. But anyway, this book is all about how wives need love and husbands need respect. And at that time, I was still very into the doing and okay, I need to try to do the right thing and kind of in this performing place still, very in the masculine, which is into doing, right? And so I was like, okay. Well, I was reading the book and making sense. And by the way, I don't necessarily recommend this book. There's some things in there that we don't agree with and messages that are just opposite of the things that we teach. So while there are some things that we would agree with, I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, so I created this whole group online and I did this weekly study with a friend on this book because I was so okay, this is the way. And at the time, I was trying to, again, force myself then to give Adam respect because this is his need and he needs unconditional respect, just like you want unconditional love. And what ended up happening is the next time that I was really deeply hurt by Adam or his behavior continued in this unhealthy way, then I felt shame. I felt shame because I wasn't giving him that respect. It wasn't a natural response for me. And it really kept me from investigating what was going on underneath. It kept me in shame and in performance instead of healing. And so we don't want you to get stuck in that behaviorism. We're gonna talk a little bit more about what the Bible says about respect, what respect really is, and then we're gonna talk about why wives lose respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And that passage that is referred to a lot in that book, and it is an important passage to really focus on, is Ephesians 5:33, which says, "However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband." And that isn't saying just do the right thing, just perform, just force yourself to do a certain thing in order to have this result.
In order to be good, to have a good marriage, to be a good wife or a good husband.
So what it is saying is it's describing what God's best is for us, really. Because a man does need that respect and a woman does need that love. This is God's best. This is how this works beautifully together. And this is God's design. It's not there to shame. It's not there as ammunition for, okay, you have to force yourself to respect, or a husband has to force himself to love his wife a certain way. It's not about outward action. It's really about what is going to work the best in God's design. This is often used to pressure women into behavior, into trying to be respectful without actually addressing the issue underneath and the reasons why that respect isn't there in the first place. When you create an environment that is rich for respect and love, then it happens naturally. It's not something that has to be forced. So it's helpful to understand that there's really 2 levels to respect. Or there's 2 levels to love even. One is God's beautiful design that we love and we respect all of the people that he made. This is God's son. This is God's daughter. I want to love them and respect them because I see that they bear God's image too, that they're his creatures that he loves. So I'm going to love them and I'm going to respect them at that level. So we would give that kind of love and respect to anybody. regardless of situation, regardless of how they're treating us, regardless of anything. And the other level of respect that happens inside of like a marriage relationship is very much impacted by the environment that's created in the marriage.
I think the needs are different too in a marriage. In the marriage, a man needs more respect, and it looks a little different than if I'm just respecting my neighbor or if I'm just respecting my brother. Same with love. He's going to love me differently than he's going to love his mom or, his coworker who's a woman. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about the two levels. And we're going to dive deeper into that. But respect, it doesn't disappear usually overnight. It erodes through patterns that are really unhealthy that usually go unnamed. And nobody's really talking about this. So today we're going to go deeper into these issues, and we're going to talk about what's really affecting the respect. And we're not here to shame men or shame women. We don't want to give ammunition to women either. Like, well, see, I don't have to respect him. That's not the goal here. But we wanted to bring truth. We want to help you bring clarity and bring healing to what is really painful.
Yeah, we want to really create an environment where respect thrives, where respect and love are a natural outflow of that environment that you are creating in your marriage. That is incredibly important, because otherwise, we're going to struggle with these things, and our marriage just isn't going to reflect that beautiful design, and it's going to be painful, and there's going to be hard things because we're stepping outside of that beautiful design that God really intended marriage to be. So I'm going to talk about number one. Number one, the wife becomes the responsible one in the relationship. That's where respect is often lost. She is now taking over a lot of the things in the home environment. She's handling schedules. She's managing emotions. She's kind of leading the way at home, and maybe in other ways, in many ways, the man has checked out of his responsibility in this area. He is no longer really showing up. God created him to be strong and to be capable and to be a leader in this area. He has often checked out of that and maybe does that at work, but he doesn't do that in the home environment. So the wife bears this incredible weight of having to manage all these things and to be responsible for this. She has to anticipate problems and then come up with the solutions without him, or there's messes all over the house, and she has to manage all that, and she has to make sure there's discipline is done properly, and she feels like she has to basically manage her husband as another element to the household too. He's not owning his role in the house to the fullest. She doesn't feel supported. She doesn't have like a strong man at her side, with her, and she has to just do this alone. And so now she slips into like a survival mode. She feels this incredible weight and this incredible burden. At some point, there's going to be some resentment that creeps in there. It's going to affect her view of him, and it's going to affect the respect that she has for her husband when she feels like she has to manage him just like she has to manage everything else in the household.
She gets exhausted, right? We've experienced this in our own marriage. And I was exhausted, and that's when women step into their masculine. They step in this masculine self-protective energy because your nervous system is literally adapting to the lack of safety. And so it's not like you want to. I know I didn't want to take on all the responsibilities. No, I did not. I absolutely didn't. But I felt like I had to. And so it took me right out of my beautiful feminine relaxation and softness and put me into this over-functioning, self-protective, exhausted place. And that level 2 respect that we were talking about earlier, it cannot grow in this kind of situation.
Right. And I think a lot of times for guys, what can happen is we check out of that because of ways that we were raised or ways that we were understanding the difference between men and women in our own household, or we even recreate patterns from our own family when we were growing up, where we think that the woman's role is to take care of everything at the house. And I think that's very unhelpful and an unhealthy thing. Like, we've made this dichotomy or this separation between, okay, the guy's job is really just to go out to work and to do his work thing, and then he's going to come home, and that's entirely her responsibility. And it just isn't healthy or helpful. I like to go back to Genesis 2, because when God created the woman, he said, I will make a helper suitable for him. That word helper is really very powerful, and we don't often think of it in the proper sense, because when we think of helper, like I mentioned, where the wife is just the one who helps out around the house, she's somewhat less than him or whatever. And in the word, there's no status there. It's not like up or lower. Really, the word helper is often used of God. to help his people.
That's a high calling.
That's a high calling,
Yeah.
exactly. And the word helper also is often used of warriors who are helping another warrior in a very difficult situation. And so some of her help is to really call him up and to call him out of situations that he's gotten himself into that are not healthy for the relationship. I like to think of it as God intended it to be like king and queen. You're a king and a queen, and sometimes the queen needs to remind the king of who he is, and sometimes the king needs to remind the queen of who she is. But they have these roles, but they're both powerful together, and there's a partnership there, that they are helping each other as they rule over the kingdom that God has given them. And I think that's a more helpful way to look at the term helper than it is to just say, well, she's just this low helper in the house that has to do all these other things, and that's her role.
Yeah, a helper is not somebody who just takes care of all the little details so that he can live his life with ease, right? That is not the role there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, number 2 reason why wives lose respect for their husbands is because he gets defensive instead of self-reflecting. And this has happened over and over in our marriage where I'll bring an issue up to Adam, and I know so many wives go through this as well. I hear it with the Wives in Restored all the time. You bring something that's on your heart. It's something that really matters to you, that is deeply affecting you, and you bring it to him, and then he either minimizes what you're saying, deflects, right? Turns it about something else or makes it about you, lashes out, gets angry, criticizes, calls names, or a lot of times they shut down, they go silent. And this is so hard because how can you stay connected to somebody that you can't have a conversation with that's needed?
Yeah, and this happens so often in men because there's some shame in there. Instead of really standing strong in who they are or having healed some of those inner things that are going on inside of them, they will often view the wife bringing up this issue, bringing her emotions as an attack, instead of as helpful information that he needs in order to really move forward or to grow as a man. When a husband doesn't self-reflect and he's not strong in this area, she doesn't have a safe place to go with her emotions or with her concerns. So she feels like she has to bear this concern, but she can't even share it with him. She can't even give it to him because he's not a safe place to take that to, because he's constantly exploding and he's constantly, like all the things Cara just mentioned. Because for him, taking accountability in that situation feels like humiliation. Unfortunately for a man, he often thinks that he's going to gain more respect from her in some kind of weird, twisted way. He thinks that the way to respect is to be strong no matter what, and to be strong means I get angry in this situation. To be strong means that I don't show weakness in this situation. He's thinking of it as an attack instead of an opportunity. Instead of, this is what I need. I need her to bring these things up. This is information I need in order to lead my family well, in order to really grow as a man. And so when a wife is in that situation, she feels like honesty is just an unsafe thing. She can't be honest with him anymore. That creates this dynamic where she cannot respect, level 2 respect, her man in this situation because she can't have a deeper conversation with him. She can't actually communicate her needs to him anymore. Respect is really built in this situation when a man takes accountability and he does his own reflecting. He does that healing work that he needs to do so that he can be a strong, safe place for her to bring these things, and that he can actually use this information to grow instead of shut down and get defensive.
Yeah, I mean, what feels wonderful for a woman is when she doesn't have to bring these things up to him. She doesn't have to keep letting him know that something that he said he didn't do or whatever. If he will do his own reflection, if he will be working on his growth himself instead of putting her in this place of his coach, his pastor, his counselor. That's not a role any woman wants.
And really deep down, the man doesn't want that either. He doesn't want her to be his coach. But by not doing his own self-reflecting, he is making her that. He's making her into his coach and his therapist and his guide and all these things.
So number 3 is she stopped feeling cherished. And this is something that every woman, that's one of the biggest needs that we have, is to feel loved and cherished. And when there's little affection or there's no pursuit, right? Just because you're married doesn't mean things get boring and you just walk next to each other through life without any pursuit and fun and romance. Or when a woman feels like he doesn't really care about her heart anymore. He doesn't care. What he's doing is impacting her heart. that is really painful as well. Another one I think is a big one in this area is like, there's no effort on his part unless she asks. And I know for us, I have kind of like a romantic heart, and Adam, it's much easier for him to just do what he needs to do every day, and like that's enough. And he doesn't always think outside of the box. And so I've had to ask him like, hey, I would really love it if you could do some romantic things for me, if you could pursue me a little. I've had to do that over and over and over because it just kind of falls by the wayside. It's painful for me because I feel like what I'm asking for, what my heart needs, isn't being heard. And then if he does do something romantic after I asked him for, because that's what would happen is I would say, hey, could you do something romantic? And then the next day he does something, and then it doesn't happen again until I ask him again. And so it just feels cheap, right? It doesn't feel genuine. It feels like all he just did that because he felt obligated to, because his wife said something to him, and so he better do what she asked, and then that's the end of it. It doesn't feel like it's really from his heart to mine. And that's painful too. So I think it's important to know here, guys, is that we're not asking for perfection, but we do want to feel like we matter. And that makes a big difference. When a woman feels like she matters to you, like she is, right? Like she is your queen. You're gonna pay her a lot of attention. You're going to pursue her heart. You care about her. You notice what matters to her and what makes her feel special. And you do that on your own without her having to ask you. That's a big part of this, I think. And when we're talking about, this need that women have to feel cherished, it's kind of like we get in this cycle where he has this need to be respected. She has this need to feel loved and cherished. And a lot of times, if she's not feeling loved and cherished, it's hard for her to give him that respect. A lot of these other things are probably at play too. The unsafety, her having to step up into roles that aren't hers. And so it's hard for her to give that respect. But then a lot of times if a man doesn't feel respected, then he doesn't want to naturally give her that love and cherishing either. It can turn into this really unhealthy cycle that we get into that's really painful. And somebody has to step out of that. Somebody has to really do the healing in their heart. And then when you do that, I suggest you do it, right? Because who better to do it than you? You only can control yourself. And bravo to you for listening to the podcast.
And even better if both of you start to both do the things.
Obviously, that's ideal. But anyone can. Anyone can start the cycle in the healthy direction. And why not start it with you? Because you can control yourself and you can pursue that healing for your heart. That's really where things start to change. And I'm not telling you, just start respecting your husband, even though you don't feel it, even though he is showing up in all these really harmful ways. I'm saying pursue healing for your heart. That's going to help you naturally be able to offer things to him that you wouldn't have been able to offer before.
Number 4, he avoids leadership, and then he ends up resenting when his wife steps into that leadership. This is a big one. I know it was a big one for us because I would sometimes notice that Kara was stepping into something, and I would feel that shame about like, oh my goodness, that's probably an area I really need to step into. But I would see her stepping into there. Maybe it was discipline with the kids. I know that happened a number of times where, she was taking the lead, disciplining the kids, setting consequences and things like that. And I was like playing catch up. I hadn't been stepping in when I needed to step in. And so then I see her leading in that area, and then I start to resent that. I start to like, she's got to do it her way. I start to create this whole story that, she's got to control everything. It's got to be her way or else. And that's unhelpful because I'm just feeding my own shame there. And I'm just like then blaming her instead of actually taking ownership and saying, okay, well, next time I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to step into leadership. I'm going to actually do the discipline the way I see that it needs to be done. Because otherwise, you become more passive. And then you start to blame her for how controlling and how she has to be the leader and all these things. And that really erodes this dynamic, this beautiful dynamic of respect and love that God created. As a man, you can step into leadership and take that initiative again.
And number 5 is when his words don't line up with his actions. This one for me has been one of the most painful reasons behind the lack of respect, and it's been a really deep wound for me because trust and respect are built when words mean something. And I can't tell you how many times I've told Adam in the past when we have walked through this painful dynamic And I just said, your words mean nothing to me. Because at the end of a conversation where I was bringing up something that was unhealthy that he was doing, he would just always say, well, yeah, I'm going to do better. Well, I'm going to change that. And then it never changed. And so he just kept doing that. I think it made him feel good at the end of a conversation to say, okay, yes, I'm going to change this. But it was really painful for me because it was never changing. And so I didn't even want to hear it, honestly, at the end. It was usually like, I'm sorry, I'm going to change this. And I'm like, that just means nothing to me. Right? Words have to mean something. Promises have to be kept.
Yeah.
Change has to follow. There has to be evidence of growth. Otherwise, this trust and respect are gone. So Jesus actually gave a story about this topic. There were these two sons. Their father asked them to go into the field and work. And the one son said, no, I'm not going to. And then he ended up going and doing it. And the other son said, yeah, okay, I will. And then he didn't do it. And Jesus was like, okay, obedience, right? Obedience is what matters, not intention. And so I know Adam's had good intentions. I know that, right? Because I know Adam, he really is a good man. And he's had good intentions, but that doesn't take us anywhere. It just does not take us to a healthy place in our marriage for him to intend something and never follow through. That is deeply painful. And if this is happening in your marriage, it doesn't mean that you're unforgiving as a wife because you're struggling with respecting him. And I know I've struggled with that many times. It's like, I keep forgiving, and I was almost like berating myself. Like, why do you keep forgiving him and keep going with his plan again when he's never doing it? How many years, how many weeks, how many days do you just keep saying to him, okay, and keep giving him more and more chances to rebuild trust only for him to break it again? I felt kind of like the fool, to be honest. So it doesn't mean that you're unforgiving if you've lost respect because of this. It's just that you've learned not to believe him, right? This is a natural reaction. If you go to a store and they cheat you out of your money at the register and then you call them out on it, you're going to be upset. And then if that happens again, you're like, okay, I'll give them another try. Maybe that was a bad day. You come back. If they do the same thing again, you're like, what is going on in this store? Like, do you guys not have integrity? Like, what is happening? You're going to stop shopping there right after that. But when you're in a marriage where you're committed, and we have been committed to each other, and I know he's acting out of his own unhealed issues. This is on him to heal. But it's hard then when you're in that committed marriage and this same behavior just keeps showing up over and over again. And it absolutely can lead to a lack of respect.
Yeah, and this really touches on a man's masculinity because you have to be a man of your word. And that is something I struggled with. Yes, like she said, the intention. Have the intention. And I thought that was good enough to have the intention. And I would go after it for like a short time and then I would lose it. It was just completely eroding trust in the relationship to show up that way, to be inconsistent and to not follow through on my word. And then I would shame myself for that as well. And so that would just keep me stuck. So there needs to be healing at that level. There needs to be a deep healing for that shame and then actually doing the very things that you promised. Like your word has to be good as a man, or else your wife isn't going to have any reason to respect you if your word isn't good. She can't trust you. That doesn't create any safety for her when she cannot trust your word to be good. It's a must as a man. And then number 6 is, and this really does tie in well with what we just talked about, she has to feel emotionally safe in the relationship. Emotional safety for a wife is really the foundation of all of these other reasons that we've given, because this is essential. When a husband ruins that emotional safety with his wife, then she can't respect him. Like if he's sarcastic with her, if he's rude to her, if he's creating an environment where she feels less than or mistreated. Maybe he uses silence a lot. He shuts down. That was me many times. Sometimes he explodes in anger. Maybe he's name calling or withdrawing. I know I did that many times. I would just check out of the situation and go away rather than actually hang in there and have that conversation. She learns eventually that it's dangerous for her to be vulnerable with him. That vulnerability, that openness, that softness as a woman, that is really her femininity. So she learns that she has to protect herself, that she cannot be feminine with her man. She can't even be herself. She cannot be her true feminine nature because he is showing up in this unsafe way. So respect always grows in an atmosphere of safety, in consistency. When her husband is a strong and wise leader in the relationship. And when she's feeling cherished, she's feeling held by him.
Yeah. And respect is not restored through pretending. It's not restored through forcing or trying harder. I did that. I tried harder. I was shaming myself. Like I was taught that you need to respect your husband. Isn't that like one of the number one things people say about wives? Like respect your man. And so it's so easy as a wife to go to shame here and to beat yourself up and to try to just make yourself respect him. And while of course there is responsibility for us as wives, there absolutely is, but the responsibility is not forcing yourself to behave in a certain way that goes completely against what is going on in your heart. What's needed is to step into healing, right? It's taking ownership of your heart and the pain that you're carrying and the way you're showing up and saying, I can see I'm hurting. For me, it was like, if he's not going to change, then I need to pursue healing for my heart. So it's not about waiting for him to change. It's not saying, see, I told you, these are the reasons why I don't respect you. This. Okay, you need to ship up and shape up and, right? So I can respect you again.
Right, and that's just shaming him, or that's just going for behavior for him.
Right.
And so, again, the same thing is true. He needs a lot of healing in order to, like, heal the reasons why he's creating this environment in the first place, the reasons why he's going to shame, the reasons why he's not creating a safe environment, the misunderstanding he has about his own masculine frame and who he is as a man. His identity is often part of, it was for me, my own identity was part of the issue. Sure. Like, you can't be a strong man if you don't know who you are, and you're not really firm and strong in that masculine center and sense of, this is who God made me to be, and I'm powerful here. Like, these are the things that need healing in order for this dynamic to be healthy again, and in order for it to better reflect the way God intended it to be.
Mm-hmm. And so as a wife, you want to pursue that healing. You want to pursue relaxing back into your femininity, which I'm going to tell you a secret. It doesn't depend on him. Even if he is acting in a completely unmasculine way for you, you can still relax into your femininity. And that's exactly what I teach inside Restored, right? I know that femininity has been buried under mounds of pain. But as you're healing, you are able to come back and enjoy getting out of that stress mode, getting out of survival mode, letting those burdens come off your shoulders and relax in being held, no matter how he's showing up. It's powerful.
Yeah, and the same is true for men. And my refined community is so powerful too, is you don't have to wait for your wife to start respecting you in order to act in a way that is respectable. Because a lot of times we can go to victim mode and it's like, oh, she doesn't respect me and there's nothing I can do about it. No, you can heal these things. You can heal your own heart issues. You can find your identity again and get strong again in who God says you are. And then you can start to show up differently. And it doesn't take her respect in order for you to do that. You can do that and start to, slowly gain that respect back simply by working on yourself, working on your own heart, working on your relationship with God, working on the things that have wounded you in the past and that need healing. Our memberships are so powerful, Restored and Refined, because this is where the healing takes place, where we really go after growing in our relationship with God, growing in who we are, in our femininity, in our masculinity. The work that we do inside of Restored and Refined would cost you thousands of dollars elsewhere. And we offer it for under $100 a month. The biggest thing is you get one-on-one support from us to really walk through these things, to really get what your heart needs and the guidance that you need to do this work inside yourself and to do this work with God. And then you also get courses and you get other tools and the community as you do this work.
For me, I've gotten courses and stuff in the past, and you can pay around this price for just a course or maybe a little more, and then you get no one-on-one help. You don't get to work with a coach unless you're willing to pay thousands.
Yeah.
And so we are just honored that at this time we can offer it at such an affordable price, because it makes such a difference in our clients' lives to have that one-on-one time with us where we can dig into their specific issue, right? Their specific need, their specific wounds, and walk with them into that. God is at work in these groups. He is doing amazing things. It is honestly an honor to be part of it, because I just sit back and watch him work, and it's pretty exciting. So yeah, if this is something that your heart is needing, don't hesitate jump in, because it's not going to just get better on its own. We tried that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Many years.
Yeah, it's time to prioritize your healing and your heart. I think that's one of the most important things you can actually give to your marriage. Yeah. So we hope this episode is really helpful, helping you kind of dig deeper. You don't need to be in a performance place. You don't need to shame yourself about any of this. Let's dig deeper and find out what's going on inside of your heart, right? What your heart is crying out for, and listen to that and then bring healing to that. That's really where the change happens. So we will see you next week.